Hi, Jeremy. How are you today?
Hi, Beth. I'm good. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. Absolutely loved Matter of Time, so wanted to let you know that.
Great. Good. I love to hear it.
So you're the director and one of the writers for the film. How did the story come about? What inspired it?
Yeah, it's actually very interesting. So, a little just to contextualize this, a little backstory on me. So, a million years ago, in the early 2000s, I worked at a company called Funimation. And Funimation, as you probably know, and your listeners, is probably most famously known for Dragon Ball Z, and of course they've brought lots of Japanese anime to the States. But when I was there in the early 2000s, me and the team there brought Dragon Ball Z to the States, and I was the licensing manager, so I did deals with toy companies and video game companies and plush and apparel, and did that for years, made a lot of contacts. Long story short, when I started my agency, the niche that we fell into was producing video game commercials and video game documentaries. Did that for a decade or so, and somewhere along the line, met Sean Astin at a convention, and he and I became fast friends. And then Sean started, becoming a producer and narrator on a lot of my documentaries. And along that road, Sean said, Jeremy, you should direct a feature. You'd be a good director. And just got to find the right project and money and all the things.
Right.
And when Matter of Time, I optioned the original script from my buddy Chris Dowling, um, and I showed that to Sean, and Sean said, "This is it. This is your brand. This is your flavor." But Chris, who originally wrote the script with a friend of his, he jokes now and says, he says the only thing that remains of that original script are the character names. Because we took it was originally a comic book shop, and Charlie was an aspiring comic book writer, and so we took the comic shop out, made it a toy shop instead of him being a comic book writer. He's now a video game designer and added a lot of the other elements. So once all that was done and Sean was happy with the script, then and once Sean agreed to do it, that helped us to, raise the money and get the rest of the cast, and here we are. That's probably a lot longer answer than you were looking for.
It's very interesting though, so I'm glad I heard it. So yeah, kind of building off of that, like going from the video game commercials and documentaries to now jumping into a fictionalized story. Was it difficult for you to switch gears with that, or was it just as seamless as everything else?
I didn't really know what to expect when we spent a year I was going to say writing, but rewriting the script. And then the shoot itself was about a month in Dallas. Um, and I've been on plenty of commercial sets where we're shooting like a Nintendo Switch commercial for 2 days. You're working with actors and you've got a script and you've got, you know, all the things. So I'm not unfamiliar with kind of set life, but it is different when you're working on a narrative, where what you're shooting today has to match with what you're shooting tomorrow, and that has to flow into, day 15, and the whole thing has to work, and it's a kind of like spinning plates. Uh, and so, I mean, the short answer is, I didn't know what to expect, but I kind of ran my set for Matter of Time a lot like I do Media Juice, which is just all ideas are welcome. I know that I'm the decider, and I'd be shortchanging myself by not allowing everybody to give ideas. And, you know, I think the length was probably the biggest difference. It's just like
Mm,
energy, energy is the currency of being a filmmaker. And so just being able to sustain 14 plus hour days for a month long is that's the trick. I think that the directing and working with talent and working with a crew I was already kind of familiar with, but the stamina was the trick.
I can only imagine, especially having multiple 14-hour days in a row.
Yeah,
That's tough. That's tough.
you kind of become a zombie after a week of that, and just the only path is forward.
But then you get a nice end product, so it makes it all worthwhile.
Yes.
Um, in addition to all of the sci-fi and gaming elements, which were really, really cool, by the way, this film tackles really interesting topics that I didn't expect to see, like ambition and friendship and grief. So what was it like creating this story and balancing the like tone and message with all of the really cool stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I've said this before, but the rule of documentary, I've been a documentary filmmaker for 20 years, and the rule of documentary is it needs to do two things and do those things well. It needs to inform and entertain. And I always put entertainment first. It needs to entertain first because you want to keep
Mm.
butts in seats. You want to keep, people interested, and then bring the subject matter in with that. And so with a movie, it's really there's no requirement to do anything but entertain. But I think it's all of the visual elements, video games and motion capture and Sean Astin and Dungeons and Dragons and a time-stopping ring is that's all the popcorn and candy and Coke, and it tastes good and it's fun to eat. But I think the protein of the film is what you just touched on is, this theme of community and this theme of self versus tribe, which really is something that came out of my life. Anybody that knows me knows I've always been a pretty ambitious guy, starting my agency back in 2004 and, you know, charging forward and doing documentaries and running a company. Um, but I got to a point in my life where I was like, and this is said in the film, which is like if you get to the top of the mountain and you're by yourself, what's the point? You know? And
Mhm.
that's a lesson that I learned in my life. And at that point, I really made a lot of changes in my life. I re-embraced my family and my friends and really saw like, okay, this is what's important in life. It's not about necessarily where you're going or what you're doing. It's about who you're with. You know, as says in The Legend of Zelda, it's dangerous to go alone. Um, and so that was really my collaborators, Jason Baumgartner, Zach Smith, who are my co-writers and collaborators. They really challenged me to say, like, what is going to be meaningful and what do you want to say? And that's what went into a lot of the rewrites is, Charlie, the main character, being on this journey, um, trying to accomplish what he wants to accomplish, but maybe doing it in a self-serving way and then learning some lessons. So I hope that comes across.
No, it does for sure, for sure. Um, it's really interesting hearing you say this, especially after talking about your documentary work and having the two rules, inform and entertain, because it seems like the movie entertains and informs, so kind of like does the opposite. Do you plan to tackle more narrative storytelling projects like this in the future?
Absolutely. No, I'd love to. That's the goal is just to be able to do it again. It's I know there's a lot of talk, and there has been for a long time about the barriers of entry being lowered to making a feature film. And while that is true, and while you can go to Best Buy and buy anything that you need to make a movie, a camera and lenses and lights and audio, I really think the power of making a good film is in the tribe, you know, like for example, my director of photography, Chris Stacy, just wildly talented cinematographer. and the look of the film is attributed to him. And then the story elements, I would attribute that to my friend Zach and Jason and myself collaborating. And so yes, I absolutely I've got a drawer full of narrative concepts and ideas and scripts. And hopefully, if Matter of Time does well, I'll get the opportunity to do another one.
I hope you do as well. My final question for you is, if you have the ability to stop time, would you use it?
Oh my gosh. It's a slippery slope. I think because of what Charlie learns in the movie, I think I would, but I think I would be informed. I wouldn't do it for long.
Right, right.
Yeah, yeah. I've got a question for you, Beth.
Sure.
What if you had to pick, your top sort of three things that you liked about Matter of Time? What is there? Do you have sort of a top three, top five?
Uh, ooh. I definitely loved the underlying themes of the family and friendship and uh community, as you said. That might be my absolute favorite because I always love looking for those like hidden messages. Um, Giving a new perspective on the use of time and I guess time travel and being able to stop time and kind of keep it going was really cool. Um, But I think just the overall look of it and how it was organized and with the sci-fi and gaming elements overlapping the live action stuff, it looked really cool.
Oh, great. That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah, that was an interesting the little I guess did you notice the animated scenes that kind of go between that was an interesting kind of necessity is the mother of invention kind of deal. Because while we did shoot some establishing shots and some exteriors, we didn't get all that we wanted because we're the little train that could. We were independent and we ran out of time and money. So when we were in the edit, we were like, we really need to see where Charlie's at in the world, where he's going from one place to another. And so we kind of concepted that like, okay, let's have him go from his house to the toy shop, but we'll transition to animation. We'll animate that in kind of this 16-bit blocky style. And then we tried it on one scene and we're like, okay, that kind of works. And then we did it throughout. So that was a kind of a happy accident.
Yeah, it was really, really cool. And not something you see with uh with movies or documentaries or really anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Thank you so much for chatting. Again, absolutely loved it, and I do hope that you get to do more narrative storytelling in the future.
Well, thank you, Beth. I appreciate you watching it. And I do too. Knock on wood.